How about a Thursday, friends? Welcome in. It is hashtag Real Race Talk, the Revved Up Sports Show on a Thursday as we dive in for another night of exceptional racing conversation on a Thursday. Kind of weird days here. We're on a weird schedule right now just because of different things that are going on. But the good thing is that you get your hashtag Real Race Talk this week. So not a bad thing to get it on a Thursday as we embark into a brand new race weekend. We are in Texas. Showtime Bobby Chaffee is down south. I'm Rodney Rodriguez. I'm up north. And we've got a loaded show coming up for you this evening. We're going to talk some good old Texas racing later on, bottom of the hour, 6:30. Our time, Central. We'll talk to Sean Paul Lehman, and that is sure to be some good stuff. Bobby, how you doing, my man?
Man, I'm hanging in there, doing a hell of a lot better than I did on Monday. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah, man. So I don't exactly know what's going on because you told me everything that was going on with you. And I've talked to several different people that I mean, same thing, dude. I don't know what's in the air. I mean, can't say that it's the COVID, I don't think. But man, there is something that has just been tearing people up.
Yeah, I called it the ash rona is what I called it the other day.
Jeez, man, that's some pretty rough stuff. So hopefully all of you have been feeling well lately because it really is. I mean, it's been a lot of people that have just not been doing well. I mean, my wife has not been doing well. She's been feeling extremely poor. So yeah. Hopefully everyone is doing well at this time of year. I got to tell you, the one thing that I like, Bobby, is right now, damn, it feels good outside. In the mornings, it's like you go outside there, it's crisp and cool. And man, I can deal with this. It feels like fall finally.
Kind of, but I don't think the weather I watched at noon says it's supposed to be warmer than normal for the fall going into November. So, I mean, if we think about back in the day, we just got done with that San Antonio race reunion. We've talked about it on here before.
Mhm.
When we go down to Oktoberfest, it's usually the first or second weekend in October, depending on how the schedules came out. But it was like you go down on a Friday night and sweat like hell, and then you'd have to bust out a coat and a beanie on Saturday night because the cold front come rolling in and got really damn cold. So you could, you drank your beer in the hot, and then about 3 o'clock in the morning, we're sitting in the pits, and boom, here comes the cold front. It got cold.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because we really are into big race season, really starting to take effect right now. Of course, our friends over at Cotton Bowl Speedway, they wrapped up their Oktoberfest on, I guess that was Saturday. Man, that feels like forever ago. So they got all of that done. A great season for them. They're done, and we appreciate being a part of their crew right there this season here on Revved Up. So they're moving on, but I mean, you've got the South Texas Race Ranch has a couple of races left. I-37 over in Pleasanton. They've got a regular show. They've still got a regular show that's coming up on Saturday, and then a couple of really big ones there. You've got the Fall Classic over at Heart of Texas Speedway, and then when you go up north, I mean, you've got other stuff happening there. But it really seems like a lot of the big shows are down here, South Central Texas. It seems like to finish this thing out.
Well, we're usually the last ones to get the worst weather, right? As long as we don't get a hurricane rocking in the Gulf over here, still have our thoughts and prayers with our friends in North Carolina, Tennessee, and especially our Florida friends over there. After Milton kind of blew in over there, so as long as we don't have a hurricane, we usually are the ones that have the best weather, right? It's not too hot, usually not too terribly cold. And so we end up having, the best weather to kind of, that's why Corpus runs until the middle of October or in the middle of December, basically, because they had the best weather down there right on the Gulf Coast. So usually works out pretty good. For some reason, it's always a whole lot colder in Pensacola that first weekend in December than it is here the first weekend in December.
Yeah, that never fails right there to where you get down there and it's a different kind of cold over there. I mean, it seems like it is just like perfect timing when you pull in there in on a Wednesday or a Thursday or whatever the case may be, and that's when that cold hits, and it winds up being a very, very chilly weekend, as it would be for the Snowball Derby coming up. Speaking of what Bobby was talking about there, I actually was talking the other day to my friend JD Boucher over in North Carolina. You've probably seen her with me over the Dirty Girl, as I like to call her. You've seen her over on Dirty Air. She was just kind of talking about some of the just devastation and everything that's been happening over there. And I was asking her, obviously if there was any way that we could help here on this show. And she was, very, wanted to try to find the best way for us to be able to do something. She sent over, and you can see it on the scroll there as the ticker goes underneath us at different times during the show. Samaritan's Purse International, SamaritansPurse.org. That's an organization right there that's doing a lot to help. And she said it is just totally devastating over there. So obviously lots of thoughts with all of those folks and all of that's going on, man. It's golly, it's been hell. And there's 2 more coming. Did you see that? I mean, there's 2 more that are out there just kind of stewing around.
Yeah, there's no telling. At the end of this, they said it's going to be a little more active than normal, and damn, they were definitely right. So, but hey, at least the Tampa Bay Rays get a new ballpark out of this whole thing. That's the only saving grace for the baseball fans there in Tampa.
Oh man, and the messed up part about that was, I mean, that was actually a place where they're at the Trop. They were actually supposed to be a place where they were going to be housing for people, and man, that place got tore up, and that place has never filled to capacity anyway. So maybe that's a blessing in disguise, sort of, for them. But yeah, that roof is just in a really, really bad
Tampa
place.
Devil Rays, man, remember that? The Devil Rays, not just the regular Tampa Rays. Tampa Devil Rays when they first came out. Back 25 years ago, would they debut with the Rockies, right? Or was it the Marlins that debuted with the Rockies?
Yeah, back in the old days. Well, you had the what'd you have? Yeah, Colorado and Florida. Yeah, they came in at the same time, and that was right around the same time that Montreal went away. And
That's right. The Diamondbacks and the Rays came in together, I think.
Arizona, and the weird thing about it is, like with Arizona and some of the, I mean, they've got World Series wins. Well, hell, so does Tampa Bay. And that's what's really weird about that when you go back and you look at it. And it's like some of those baseball franchises that have actually won World Series titles. And well, when Jacksonville and Carolina came into the NFL, I mean, their first couple of years, I mean, they were in title games and so forth.
Both of them, NFC and AFC respectively, first or second year in the league.
But neither one of them is close right now.
No.
As a matter of fact, I think Doug Peterson is probably going to be looking for a job next, as all of that shakes out there in the National Football League. So this past weekend, we talked about Cotton Bowl, but you had the Winchester 400, and I wasn't. I don't have track TV. I wasn't actually watching that. I was actually paying for it at one point, but I kind of dropped that just to, just not enough, to invest in there and watch it. But Cole Butcher, man, I'll tell you, he's able to beat Ty Majeski on the high banks there at Winchester. And Cole Butcher, I think that's one of those dudes that you always see him fast. And of course, in Donnie Wilson's equipment, you always see him fast. But man, I think he kind of slides under the radar, doesn't he? Because you get to these big marquee races like that, and it's boom, Cole Butcher. I mean, he doesn't necessarily dominate these races all the time. He doesn't lead all the laps, but when it's all said and done, it's Cole Butcher that does it again.
It's kind of like he's a dark horse, but he's like, what do you call it in horse betting when like the long shot kind of wins? But he's not a long shot because he's in really great equipment with Donnie Wilson.
Yeah.
But when you come around and it's like, when you put it on paper, you've got the same 4 or 5 guys who are set to be the favorites, especially when you run, you got Pollard, Nassie, Ty Majeski, Casey Roderick, name a couple of more guys if you want. And, those guys are the ones that are always on the radar because they're the ones that are always running up front. And then you got Butcher kind of just slides up in there, top 5s, top 3s, top 2s, throwing a win, sprinkling a win every now and then. But he right. He kind of flies under the radar to a certain extent, but yet I wonder why. Like he really shouldn't. Maybe just because he's not flamboyant enough, or I don't know what it is. But it's like he should be considered a little higher up on the pecking order when it comes to some of that stuff.
I've talked with Cole, and he's very laid back. Cole, I think they the last time I talked to him, they had just become parents or were about to be parents, and I think that's something with him to where it is. He's Canadian, so I think it's one of those things to where there's not a lot of pizzazz, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean he's just very matter of fact. And I think that's the way that he races. I mean, because what he does is, like you mentioned there in Donnie's equipment, I mean, he always puts himself in a position to win, but he's not somebody that's going to come out. He's not going to tear stuff up. He's not going to put anybody else in jeopardy. He's not going to make stupid moves. He's not going to do anything like that. He just kind of sits and patiently waits. He kind of has that old, like when Darrell Waltrip got a little bit longer in the tooth, where, he said sometimes to go faster, you got to go slower. Cole just kind of waits, and then he makes his move. And it's one of those things, Bobby, when Cole Butcher finally makes the move and goes, you better forget it, because you ain't going to catch him.
Well, I think that's part of the saving of the equipment part too. You got guys that are really fast right out of the box, and they continue to just burn up tires. Because those tires are just so finicky. I'm trying to think of staying stuff positive. I thought I'd try to be more positive on this show today, but I don't want to say the tires can become useless at some of these old racetracks, which is part of it, right? Tire management and equipment saving is part of racing, especially with the super late models. But I don't know. Maybe just because his other teammates over there at Wilson just seem to have a little bit more edge to them, maybe, if you think about it.
Yeah. I think that's a big part of it. I think that's a big part of it, because those guys, I mean, he runs the races differently. I think probably the best way to describe what Cole does is Cole races the track. Where you get a lot of these guys that they go out and they burn their shit up, and Butcher, when you get out there, especially at Winchester, I mean, because those corners are just, oh my God, they're monstrous when you get out there into something like that. But he races the racetrack, and he races the race, and it's something that's really cool to see when you get these guys right now, because he doesn't. I mean, it's one thing when you see a lot of different guys. John Bolin is a guy, for example, in the super late models, where it's like, he doesn't have the Donnie Wilson equipment. He doesn't have, some of the resources that some of these guys have, but he's very smart about the way that he utilizes what he has. And whether it's in the pro or in the super late model, you see him, and he works his way through the field, and there he is at the end. And it's weird with Butcher, because he does that, but he has the resources. And I think a lot of that is that Cole hasn't always had that. And I think that maybe that's a little bit of the mindset there for him.
It could be, but you guys that don't usually have it are the ones that try to take care of it the most.
Yeah.
I mean, that because they know the penalty of, I mean, Donnie's got 4 or 5 cars, but that doesn't mean he wants to use them up all the time. So I mean, I think that's why, that's why you kind of see those that what's the word I'm looking for again? I'm almost somewhat out of sorts today, trying to think of really good stuff to stay positive. It's the difference between the haves and have-nots. The have-nots have a tendency to take care of their stuff. You see it a little bit in the Cars Tour. You could see that. You could tell the people that have a little bit extra leather power, if you will, on the backside, have a tendency to be a little bit more reckless.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I really do think that a lot of it is that Cole has worked on his cars, and I think that's what's so really cool. Like when we talk about Caden Honeycutt, is that when you watch Caden Honeycutt race, and again, a great week for him. You mentioned the Cars Tour, another great week for him there in the Cars Tour. When you watch these guys race, I mean, it's those dudes that have had to work on the cars, and the guys that actually turned wrenches. I mean, Bailey Curry's another great example, and I love that what you posted with the 2 Texans right there doing their thing. But these are guys that when you have to work on your own stuff, it kind of changes the mindset behind the wheel a lot.
Well, I think it has to. I mean, those that work on their equipment know, oh, damn, that's a fender that I got to fix, or, oh, damn, there's a clip we got to put on, or, you got to, there's a, you put a wrap on it every week, but, it's just one of those, and then the seat more. Well, you know what, if it's a little loose, if I try this, let me run it over with the chief and see, look, it's doing this coming in, it's doing this coming off. Maybe we should do this. What do you think? And then the crew chief gives his opinion on it. So I think those that are more in tune, I mean, like we said, money buys speed, but a good ass in the seat buys tenths of a second, not just raw speed, but it fine tunes the stopwatch.
And in that Cars Tour this past weekend that we were talking about, Tri-County, it is Caden Honeycutt winning in the pro late models there, and then in the late model stocks, Connor Jones wins one, and then out of nowhere, and when you want to talk about guys that kind of save their stuff and just kind of wait, Jared Fryer was kind of not a factor in that race whatsoever. I went back and rewatched that, and it's like, boom, they come down to the end, and it's like, where'd the 14 come from? I was sitting there watching it, and because they kind of had the different scheme on it, where it had the orange on the top. I'm like, who is that? And it was Jared, and Jared comes home second there with Butterbean. rounding out the top 3 in the Cars Tour. But again, there you go. I mean, that's and with Cars Tour, when it comes to pavement, Bobby, I know. I mean, I love the supers, and I love, when we get to Winchester, we got the World Crown 300 that's coming up with Ricky and his group, but you really can't beat a Cars Tour race. I mean, that really has that old ASA and All Pro and some of those old series feels to it, man. That's really where if you're a short track racing fan, if you're a dirt track racing fan and you've sworn off pavement racing, watch a Cars Tour late model stock race, and they will draw you back in. I promise.
Well, it's just so competitive, right? There's so many top teams out there. I think if you had Cars Tour, if it wasn't so much Mid-Atlantic based, I think even if they came down, the NASCAR people recognize it, obviously, with the ownership group for sure. But I think if it was able to come a little bit further south, a little bit further west, then I think that it would have a little bit more broader appeal. I think just because you're always running in Virginia and northern North Carolina, all those Mid-Atlantic tracks, granted, when you step out of that Mid-Atlantic region, you don't have much of a late model stock car set up. They're all supers or pros when you get outside of the Mid-Atlantic. Kind of the same way when you get into the Midwest, it's mainly pro late models and outlaw super late models. So there's always, I think that's the difference with what happens. And you got a Christine message popping up over there.
Of course. Yeah, looked like Lightning McQueen.
It wasn't me jumping on that hood, that's for sure. So I mean, I just think that I think that the Cars Tour is great, and your hardcore fans and your regional fans love it. I just think that it's the rest of the nation that needs to take a little bit bigger look at it to determine, when that broader appeal is there. Does that make sense? I mean, am I off on that? I mean, it's got hardcore fans, but the hardcore fans are preaching to the choir because they're the ones that follow it because they're in that region.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that, I kind of like that in the sense that, I mean, obviously you want the race series. I mean, whatever it's going to be, you want it to be successful, but at the same time, because that really is my concern. And we need to get Keely on here, Keely Dubinsky. We need to get her in on here during the off season and just kind of talk about, because that is the one thing that does concern me. And we've talked to different people on here to where it's like, I want it to be just as big as possible. I mean, I want it to be really, really cool. But when we talk about, like, every time that I mention ASA and every time that I mention All Pro, what happened to them? They blew up and they eventually dissolved because they just
got too big. Tried to go too mainstream.
Exactly. They got way too big and they just kind of fit in with everything else. You know what I mean? And it's like, I seriously with ARCA, every time that I see folks that are beating up on ARCA, it's like, I mean, I totally understand that now with what ARCA is, but ARCA was a really badass series at one point to where you had some of these veteran guys that I mean, lifelong ARCA people. I mean, like Bob Shatt and Lee Raymond and yeah. These guys that's what they raced and that was it. And they were their own little thing. But
that was far from a development series. Your big tracks, yes. You had your Daytonas, Talladegas, Poconos, all that. You had your future Cup stars that needed to get the experience to get the NASCAR license to run the big tracks. That's when you had the NASCAR development stuff there.
Yep.
But now it's just too. You don't have your hardcore. Yeah, you got Venturini in there, but he's got pocket racers. And I'm not talking about pocket change racers. I'm talking about deep pocket racers. And so that has kind of, the ARCA series, and it, I don't know. The last time I looked at the ARCA rulebook, they required spotters in them cars, but I'll be damned if they talk during half those crashes.
And this goes back to, because we didn't really get to dig into this last time because my internet thing got all jacked up over here. But it's like with the NASCAR thing, with this NASCAR suit that we're seeing about the monopoly or whatever they're wanting to call that. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, that really is the case. NASCAR does control all of that, but it's a situation to where nobody else has stepped in and tried to do anything else. And I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing. You don't need competing entities and sanctioning bodies. You don't need all that. I mean, we're seeing it on the super late model side right now, to where you've got the different ones there, and I think that they've kind of figured out a way to make things work. But you look over on the dirt side, I mean, you got the World of Outlaws, and then you got the high limit thing, and it, I mean, it makes racers decide, and there are different things that happen right there. But I think when NASCAR acquired ARCA, and again, if you're the folks that were running ARCA at that point, it's really hard to turn down money. When folks want to complain about North Wilkesboro, you know, with everything that happened there initially back in the mid 90s, for that family, it's really hard to turn down that kind of money. They've never seen that kind of money before. And NASCAR does control everything. They really do. And here's where it's going to get exciting as we transition over to this, is that I saw today that it really seems like NASCAR is preparing to compete with what they say, 32 cars.
32, taking away 4 charters, the 2 from 2311 and the 2 from Front Row.
Yeah. And in the sense of what that suit says, there's another example right there. But at the same time, it's really hard for me to
It'll get worked out. There's no way they're spending all that millions of dollars to not have a charter. They're not just going to just shut it down.
right.
I mean, there's too much money invested, you know. But you know what you call that, right? That's the rules of the sandbox.
Mm-hmm.
It has always been NASCAR's sandbox.
Absolutely.
Always. From day one, down on the beach, when they raced on the sands of the beach at Daytona, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been NASCAR sandbox. They can do whatever they want because it's their sandbox. It's that simple. NFL can do whatever the hell they want because it's their sandbox. USFL, United Football League, the Rocks Football League, all of that doesn't hold a candle to the NFL. There's a reason why the USAC Stock Car Series isn't racing anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it is that, you know, that's why, you know, there's not really an alternative to it. You know, ARCA's not, because it's owned by NASCAR. There's not another stock car alternative at that high of a professional level. You know, same thing. You know, it's their sandbox. They can do what they want to, and I think that's just the realization people have to have. Sure, you know, I agree with some that say, if you think about it, you know, who was when you think Mark Martin, who was his sponsor?
Valvoline.
Right. You think Rusty Wallace, who was his sponsor?
Kodiak.
Or Miller, whatever. You know, pick
one.
You going too old school.
Al Ugard.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
but it's like, you know, now that you're back in the day when it was, it's never been cost effective to run NASCAR.
Yeah.
But they had, you know, then tell me, who was the sponsor of Kyle Busch last week?
I have no clue.
Who was the sponsor 2 weeks ago?
I have no clue.
It's right, because now it costs a damn much. They change their stuff every week. That's why the diecast companies are going out of business. They can't produce enough diecast to keep up with the cost effectiveness of the sponsors changing each week. So I just think that, yeah, get a little bit more TV money, give a little bit more to the teams. It's not going to hurt. I think if you give more money to the teams, it's only going to make them stronger. But I think they should have only given out 32 charters to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, granted, would that reduce the field? Would that reduce the field a little bit? Like, it, you know, we have 36 charter teams, and 3/4 of the time, 36 charter teams show up to race. But if you did 32 charters back in the original charter agreement, that to me opens up the door for another OEM to come in. The problem is you're not going to get another OEM to come in as long as those high-powered, fire-breathing V8s are running down the racetrack.
Well, and the other part of that is because I saw that 2311 and Front Row apparently are very open to running as non-chartered, which with the current setup, no big deal. I mean, you're going to get in the race anyway. And you know, that's kind of the other problem, to where it's like, if you're going to have a 38 car field or whatever it is, and there's 32, I mean, odds are you're going to get in. I mean, maybe at Daytona you don't, but what I wish that you could still see, and again, like you talked about, it's NASCAR sandbox. What you don't see anymore is like when you used to go to Daytona and you would have these just, I mean, you think of the guys, DK Ulrich, you name the driver that would come in, and they come in with their car and they try to make the race. And sometimes they did. I mean, most of the times they didn't, but it wasn't so much just it's a circle of people. I mean, like we were like I talk about with the NASCAR media thing. It's like when you hear the press conferences and all that, it's like it's five people that are going to ask the questions. I mean, you can count them on your hands. They're the ones that are going to be asking whoever the deal,
And
and
it's
that's
the same damn questions every week.
same damn questions every week, and they're softball questions, and this is where it goes back to what 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 I think would be really neat to happen, and it's funny that this happens this week with all the shit about Jerry Jones and everything that he's over here doing, that threatening to fire Sean Sharif and RJ Choppy on 105.3 and all the different things for everything that Jerry Jones has done wrong when it comes to operating the Dallas Cowboys and being the general manager. What Jerry Jones has done for the National Football League has just been astronomical, because he eliminated a lot of what we're talking about with NASCAR, to where it was Jerry said, well, wait a minute here. Wait a minute here. If Ford wants to sponsor my team and wants to sponsor my stadium, why am I sharing that revenue with everybody else? That they're interested in me. If Miller Lite wants to be the official beer of the Dallas Cowboys, why am I spreading that and having to share that with other owners? And I think that's a lot of what Michael and Michael Jordan, I mean, he's a terrible basketball owner, but Michael Jordan has been in the sport, and I think that Denny Hamlin's getting a really, really bad rap right now from people, just because people don't like him, for one thing. But I think that now, I mean, I said this on podcast the other day. Now that Denny's fucking paying the bills, he's like, wait a minute here. This just doesn't make sense. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing because that's what Jerry Jones did. Jerry Jones changed the NFL from like with trademarks and merchandising. With the merchandising stuff, Jerry Jones turned that shit upside down. And that's where they make their money. And it's okay, I think, for a team or company to make their money when at the same time the league is going to make their money as well.
And it's, I mean, they signed a $7-8 billion deal. There's enough money to go around to make everybody happy.
Exactly.
And there's enough money to keep all the pockets lined where they're going to be pretty damn good.
And the other part, Bobby, is it would be one thing if the TV thing is what I think is what drastically makes this more. If we didn't know what NASCAR got for TV, I think that would be one thing to where it's like, but all this shit's public knowledge. And you have guys like Adam Stern and all these different people that are telling us NASCAR signs a whatever $1 billion TV deal for however many years. And again, if you're looking at that as an owner, as a business, because that's what this is. This ain't just people going out there racing for fun. I mean, if you look at that, it's like this shit just doesn't add up. And I get it. I get that part. But at the same time, I get on the NASCAR side to where they're like, well, fuck you. This has been our thing forever. But when you get new people doing this, and I mean, you know, Richard Childress said, well, I pretty much signed it because I had to. Yeah. And I applaud that. I'm not the biggest Richard Childress fan, but when he says, I got 400 people I have to worry about, that's a fucking hero in my book.
Well, if you think about it, in the course of time, the only guys in recent memory that have won a NASCAR race or even one down at Daytona racing out of a barn is Cole Trickle and Harry Hyde. You know, it don't happen like that no more. You don't have the garage bound cars that we massaged on it here. We put the oil pan up a little bit higher here. You don't have that now. These are multi-mega $million-dollar operations. The good old boy network of NASCAR is gone. Mm-hmm. That's why people say the sport is dead. Right now, the sport is as healthy as it's ever been. Now, attendance-wise, was it like it was in the early to mid 2000s, selling out 130,000? No. But no sport is selling out like it did in that economic boom in the early 2000s, except for the NFL. You pat that asterisk, and NFL is doing its own thing. Mm-hmm. College is now doing its own thing. Yeah. But I think that there's just no way to, it's not the good old boy network anymore. It's all about dollars and cents because it has to be. It's a professional sports league. The TV pack, anybody that wants to say racing, NASCAR racing itself still has that redneck connotation, and it always will.
Mhm.
But when it talks about NASCAR is no longer the redneck sport that it used to be, because of the fact just TV package alone, it's right there with everybody but the NFL.
Exactly. And that's where, when you get these guys like Larry Mack, and with all due respect to Larry Mack, I mean, he just seems to be the guy that I pick on because he's the one that's more boisterous about all this. When he's like, we don't want to be the MLB, we don't want to be. I understand that, but I'm sorry, you are that. You put yourself in that spot, not him, but and I mean, to me, it's flattering to me, having been a stock car racing fan for all my damn life, that my sport is now considered in there with hockey and baseball and basketball. You are that. You may not want to be that, but you are. I mean, I don't want to drink too much beer, but I do. It's just kind of one of those things, if you know what I mean. So it's a debate that's going to go on and on. This is not going to be resolved anytime soon. And I think when it's all said and done, I mean, there's going to be a lot of hurt feelings in this thing. And what I just hope doesn't happen. What I just hope doesn't happen is that you get to a situation to where things start happening, whether it be to 2311 or the front row, that are really egregious. And I don't think that's going to be the case. I got to tell you, when they threw Alex Bowman out the other day, my first thought was, oh, well, that's a good distraction. So I don't know, man. I don't know. It's very interesting, to say the least. Who would have ever thought our little sport is over here? I mean, when Tim Richmond with with all that, and there was a court thing that may be going on, I mean, that was one thing. But when it came to just all this money, I mean, that's our sport now, isn't it? I mean, it's all driven by that almighty dollar.
Money creates problems, but money solves a lot of problems too, because what's going to happen is, what's NASCAR going to do? Are they going to change if they change the terms for front row and 2311, you got the other 12 teams that are going to lose their ever loving mind because they changed the terms.
Yep.
They're going to say, what happened? So if you change it for one, you got to change it for all of them. They'll be signing amendments and stuff like that with those other 12, 14 teams, whatever, however many it is. But it's, I don't know, dude. It's a good problem to have when you got big business, when people are suing each other for antitrust. That means we've actually made it in the sports world.
That's exactly my thought. I mean, that's really the way that I look at it. And you and I are in the minority when it comes to that. And because it really is, when folks are saying, well, NASCAR's they've done it now. I mean, that's and Sean Paul Lehman coming up here in just a couple of minutes. He's in the waiting room, so we'll pull him in here. Sean, sorry, we're over here rambling, but it's one of those things to where when you look at all of this, it's I'm surprised this hadn't happened before. I am really surprised this hadn't happened before. But I think that, like, when you talk about the Good Old Boy Network and kind of the circle and all that, these people aren't, I mean, Jordan and his investors, they're not the good old boys.
I expected it from Jordan. I didn't expect it from Bob Jenkins.
I think it's one of those things with Bob Jenkins, and I heard Larry talking about that. Why him? I mean, if I'm Bob Jenkins, I'm sure Denny Hamlin or Michael or somebody probably sat down with him, and they're like,
we need a tag team partner.
Yeah. And they're like, look at this. They do the what was that thing where you do the cross? Here's the positives and here's the negatives, and they have just been left out. And
that's
now,
why 2 college football teams leave the conference at the same time.
That's exactly right.
You got to have a dancing partner.
Got to have a dancing partner. And with the 2 that left, one ain't worth a damn, and the other one's really, really good. It seems. So we'll talk more about that. All right, let's go diving in. All right, man, we're going to the shop. That's what I'm talking about right there. As we welcome in, he looks fresh out of school. Look at this guy. You're right here, man. That is looking sharp right there, man. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
Doing well, dude. We're just sitting over here bitching and moaning about NASCAR. You know,
Oh, NASCAR.
great conversation.
Yeah,
Sean, how you been, man? What's how's the family? How's everybody doing?
great. Everybody's doing good. Everybody's doing good. Yeah, just rolling through life. Everything's going good.
Love it.
How y'all been?
Just living the dream. Living
What
the
is it
dream.
like McConaughey says in Days Confused? LIVIN, just living.
That's all you can do. That's all you can do.
No doubt about it. Sean, let's talk about and again we can talk about we'll talk about old memories and we'll talk about all that good stuff here as we go on through the evening. Talk about for you. I've been really wanting to ask you the transition to dirt for you because it's one of those things. I tried it, I sucked, and but I did it in a dwarf car, so I was totally lost anyway. So, kind of talk about some of the people think it's easy. People make it look easy, but man, it is not. It is not easy.
So, yeah. So you know where I'm coming from. Yeah, I didn't think it would be. I didn't think we would struggle as much as we struggled. I'd heard numerous times. To be honest with you, for decades, I kind of poked fun at them. I called them potato farmers, and I thought they just, they. I didn't consider it real racing. I got to be honest, and boy, I'm getting put in my place for that now. There's a whole different skill set to it that I've never acquired, and I don't know if I ever will. Not going to quit trying. Definitely going to keep trying, but it is a big difference. I applaud like Tim Sewell and Steve Sims, Adam Hall. A lot of these guys, they went to dirt, and I got to be honest. I'm trying to figure out how they just jumped right in and kind of, just picked up where they would have left off on asphalt. But for me, it's definitely been a struggle. So,
yeah. Bobby, let me jump in here right quick. Sean, how much of that is on asphalt? You're in control. Your precision. You're doing all these different things. How much of it is because that was the one thing for me on dirt. I just felt like I was never in control. I was always sliding and bouncing and all these. I think that was my problem.
The biggest issue that I have is when that right rear kicks out, I hear Terry James in my ear saying, "Get off the F and right rear tire." And I'm always trying to I'm trying to pull it back in. It doesn't feel right to me. I'm not saying it doesn't feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't feel right. And I've tried to break that habit, but every time that right rear kicks out, I think I'm killing that right rear tire. But that's 27 years on asphalt, and you just can't break that mentality. It's been a real challenge. But that's probably the biggest hindering I got is if you can't get into a turn, you're not going to get off of it. And I can't get in the turn. And if I can ever get that down, get that out of my head and get it right, I think we're going to be pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, Sean, at least you're running asphalt pull-offs on a dirt car, right? You never thought in your lifetime you'd be seeing that, right? Running asphalt pull-offs on a dirt car?
Well, we don't actually. The factory stocks run the F45. Mm-hmm. We run the G60s. I really, I'm jealous of those guys. I'm thinking, well, man, if I had 10 inches of tire, that would definitely make this work a lot better. But we're actually running the 8-inch G60s.
Yeah. So Sean, with the dirt thing, because I will say that, people told me the same thing. You're not going to spend as much money in dirt. You're not going to touch stuff up as much, kind of the whole thing right there. But I will say what dirt really does, the dirt tracks really, especially Cotton Bowl, what they really resort back to me with is the times that you and I, when we raced, I mean, kind of the circle of friends right there and that atmosphere and all of that, kind of speak to that point. Cause that is the really cool part for me where it's like, it's like an old family reunion. It seems like.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, the dirt deal as the asphalt track started kind of falling to the side, my whole family, that's all we've ever known is racing. And so I figured I better jump onto something. I didn't want to race a Miata in a parking lot. So, we just kind of went to the dirt side, and I thought it'd be good. It'd get my granddad out, get my granddad to the track, get my granddad around people that, love him and like to see him. And, it's kind of cool, getting to run, like I said, Tim Sewell and Robert Stewart, Heath Stewart, a lot of the guys that I've grown up with, you guys, well, especially you, Rodney, that I raced with, grew up with around the short tracks. Getting to spend time with those guys it's great. Now we're all older now. It's a little different, but it's still the same, it's different, but it's the same. But then like a lot of the, great people that I met just coming, to the dirt, Keith White, I admire Keith White, more than I could put into words. Mark Herring, a lot of these guys, they're just good characters. And, and I think that is, how do I put it? I've said this a few times, but dirt, I've never had as much fun sucking at something so bad.
Yeah.
And me and Keith have talked about that. Me and Mark have talked about that. And that's what kind of makes it genuine, is that even if I don't have a good night on a dirt track, I've had good conversations and I've just, made the most of it, whether or not it was from the seat of the race car or just, running for mayor through the pits.
Yeah.
So does the challenge to get you up in the morning to go to the racetrack? I mean, like, it's got to be, back in the day, it's always been challenging, right? It's not that asphalt was just easier. You still had to turn the wrenches all week and show up to the racetrack and all that. But does the fire's still there for you, right? I mean, it's not like just because you went to dirt, got a little dust on the fire and it kind of died out. I mean, you still got it in there, right?
Oh, no. Well, trust me, right now, I mean, and I meant to call Owen this week. I'm probably not going to be in Houston. I've got some stuff going on, and I'm actually getting the car ready for dirt. I'm not going to give up on dirt. I'm going to keep trying this until and so I guess to answer the question, do I still have the fire? I think that dirt has made the fire stronger. Now, do I race as much as I used to? No, we've got a lot going on. We're older now, and we do a lot with our church. She put up with my racing for 30 years, so we go camping a lot now. She gave me my time, so I'm trying to give back to her. And speaking of my wife, Crystal, and but yeah, the fire is still there. And to be honest with you, I think it's more so in the shop. I really like staying busy working in the shop, working on the race cars, and when I get to the track, I got to admit, it is kind of a Debbie Downer where going, well, I hope it's used to. I'd show up in an asphalt track and I would, I pretty much had it set in my head that they were going to have to beat me to win a race. And now I show up to a dirt track and I just kind of go, well, I hope I don't get run over or get in the way, and just have fun, So, but the fire is still there. I'm definitely not, I'm not saying I'm a dirt racer, because anybody that's seen me race dirt knows that's not the truth. But I'm not going to say I'm not going to say that I'm an asphalt racer either. I want to learn more on dirt. So if the fire's still there, it's because, like you said, it's a challenge, and it pisses me off. I'm not going to lie. And when I get that, fires me up. That makes me want to try more. And so I'm not gonna quit on it. Yeah. So I saw somebody said, don't sell the car. If the car sells, I've got other plans. It's not that I'm not saying I'm just taking off and we're gonna go camping every weekend, or I'm not done. Not just yet, but
yeah. Sean, I mean, I think so much of this is, and pardon the dog, geez Louise, how much of this is for you? Because I mean, like when you mentioned your granddad, I mean, Junior comes out with you. I mean, just to be back at the racetrack again and doing that, and a lot of times it's irrelevant whether you're first or 20th. I mean, just the fact that you get to do that with your people, and like the last a few times out, like when Case would come race and all of you guys were there, it was like, man, now that's why we do this stuff,
Yeah.
man. That's really what it's all about.
Yeah. Houston was really cool. Having my brother there and having my nephew there, having both my nephews there, having Thomas next on Thomas and Rowdy on one side of me, and Colt and Case on the other side of us. And then Pawpaw's there, Mom's there, Terry, my stepdad's there, and it was it. I mean, it didn't end good. It was I think it ended after like 3/4 of a lap, but it was still a lot of fun. And I'll tell you this: driving home that night, I was had Matthew Hollinsby was riding shotgun, and Pawpaw was laid out in the back seat, and their snoring kept me awake, kept me on the road, and I remember thinking, how great is this? That I just my 94-year-old granddaddy just spent all day at a racetrack, and he's riding home with me, and we get to do this, So is there bad nights at a racetrack? No. Is there bad races? Yes. But I'd like to say that, I always used to kind of poke fun at people when they'd say, "Hey, you having fun?" And I'd say, "Well, it'd be more fun if you're winning." It's always more fun when you're winning. But I'm not going to take for granted, the family that I got around me and the opportunities that I've had. Even if we're struggling, it's still, man, hey, we get a chance to struggle, so that's all it is. So.
So we know the family's involved, right? We were talking about it right now, but we often talk to people before. I think it's your case is slightly different because your family's just neck deep in racing, has been for years, with building cars, racing cars, all that stuff, in different kind of cars. But for the guys that don't have the family connections like you had, is it the way, like the camaraderie between the racers? Is that what keeps people coming back, or is it their competition level? Is it a combination of stuff? I mean, it seems like the one thing that I remember about the racing stuff is, even though I wasn't racing, I remember going in and hanging out in the pits with Bubba and H and Rob and all those guys over there. I wasn't a racer, but I came to the racetrack because I was a fan. But more so, I stayed in the pits afterward because we had a good time with the radio on in the hauler.
Yeah. I missed the first part of your question there. I don't know if my internet was messing up or something, but I guess what you were asking was, I'm sorry, I missed the first part of that question.
It's about the camaraderie, the camaraderie versus having the family in it. Is that what keeps people rolling? Is the camaraderie?
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, I feel like we've kind of adopted Matthew Hollinsby into our little group. The kid, I call him a kid. He's 21 or 22 years old, but he's got, you mentioned fire a while ago. I see something in him where he wants to do this. He's burned up with it. He's ate up with it. And for him, he has a lot of bad nights at the racetrack right now. He's learning, he's growing. And he didn't have, him and his dad and his brother, they would go to racetracks when they were younger in Mississippi and Florida, but he didn't have Junior Medlock. He didn't have Terry James. He didn't, and the best thing I can say to folks like me and Rodney, and, not only did I have Terry James and Junior Medlock, I had Danny Stewart. I had Calvin Cantwell. I got a lot of advice from John Kelly. These guys really, even if your family wasn't at the racetrack, everybody always, that kind of cliche, that's my racing family. Those guys I felt like I latched onto them. I felt like I pestered them. And, but they never told me, "Scram, kid." They never told me, "Go away." They gave me advice. They supported me. And I think that, like you said, the camaraderie, a lot of these guys nowadays, soon as their feature's over, they're waiting to get their money and get their ID back if they borrowed a transponder, and they're waiting in a line to get out the gate. They're not waiting to meet anybody. They're not waiting to talk to anybody. And there's probably somebody up in those stands that wants to come talk to them about, how do you build a race car? How do you do what you do? And that's where that camaraderie comes into. And when we talk a lot about, car counts or where's the next generation coming from, I've been real fortunate. Rodney's dad raced. We came from, to us, I thought it was weird that the kids down the streets, dad didn't race a race car. I thought everybody had a race car, and we need to take a look at that, that we need to have these conversations with these people, quit being so introverted and wanting to lock ourselves in the trailer and leave, 30 minutes after the race. Have those conversations. I'm not saying hang out there and, cause trouble, get locked up, have a rowdy Saturday night. Just hang out and meet people, and share your thoughts.
Yeah. That really is the big difference. I was actually talking to somebody, one of the last races I was at, and they asked me, they said, why don't people want to go to the pits anymore after the races? I said, I don't know. I mean, for me, that was, growing up going to Speedorama, you remember you had the concession stand right there. You had that fence, and you would just, if you were in the stands, you just sat there and you looked at the pits. Remember that?
Yeah. You would literally hang on the fence waiting for them to open the gate so you could get to the pits. Yeah. And that wasn't just so you could see your dad or I could see my dad or my granddad. That was, we wanted to be next to the car. We wanted to be in the pits. We wanted to see what was going on. And I think people still want to do that. But like I said, by the time they open the pit gate, they're going to get run over because everybody's hauling ass to get out of the pits and get home.
Yeah. No doubt.
Yeah, that was tough for me when I started at Texana, like learning, it was one thing when we were announcing at Thunderhill and CTS and all that, because we still knew everybody at that point. We knew which family tree went which way. We knew which family tree branches broke and all that. But trying to learn the people on the dirt, it was like they didn't stay to party. There was a few that did, but I didn't know them. But it's like nowadays, it's like, well, who is so and so? Oh, they're in the pits over there in the white trailer. Everybody's got an enclosed trailer now. It's like, how do you make friends and learn people when everybody's got a white trailer, everybody's loaded up and got the door buttoned up before the races are even completely over, except for the guys that run the last feature.
Yeah, and I will say I'm not going to be the pot calling the kettle black, because I am kind of guilty of that. But I got a 94-year-old granddad that as soon as the race, he's like, "You want?" He's ready to go. But yeah, like you said, by the time the last feature's over, let them down, just say hi. If you want to get a card, a hero card, or whatever they call it, if you want to give them those. But more importantly, it doesn't have to do with giving that. Give conversation away. Just wait a little bit, load your stuff up. And just, if they show up, show up. But if they show up and there's nobody there to talk to, you'll have an opportunity,
Yeah.
So,
Yep. We still got you. Yep. Yeah, we would leave the car. I mean, even if the car was wrecked, I mean, whatever the case was, we'd leave it there. I mean, the kids want to come up and get in there, whatever the hell the case was. I mean, whatever happened, we just kind of left it there. So kind of talking about you starting out, Sean. So let's go back to Speedorama with the hobby stock days. Kind of go back and trace that thing back. I mean, like for you, it wasn't if you were going to race, it was when you were going to race. Kind of go back and talk about that class back in those hobby stock days, man. That's a damn good class back then, man.
Me and my granddad were talking about that actually just last Saturday at breakfast, and he said, "Man, can you believe we used to run 32 something races a year?" And that was me, and me and Papa would do it, and me and Terry would do it, and Mom raced off and on, and we had a lot of cars to keep ready, and man, we tore a bunch of stuff up. But yeah, we used to run crazy schedules, literally no weeks off. You just ran. And I started racing in 1994 at Longhorn Speedway. And that car, well, that's my second hobby stock. The first one, I was working with Mickey McKemp at Mickey's Body Shop, and I was wanting to get started racing. My dad did not want me racing. He said, until you move out and pay some bills, you're not going to have a race car, and I understood that, if I'm living in this house, I should be doing something useful with my money. But I grew up thinking race cars were useful. That's his fault. So,
Right.
but an old car went by the shop on a trailer, and Mickey said, "Hey, there goes your race car." And he was kind of making a joke, and I jumped in my 67 Chevy and chased the guy down about 2 miles up the road, pulled him over, asked him if he was going to scrap with it, and asked him how much scrap was going to give him. And he said $75. I said, well, I'll give you 50 and save you gas money if you bring it back over here. So he brought it back to Mickey's, and then me and Mickey hid it out behind Mickey's shop, because Mickey's actually only down the block from my parents' house.
Yeah.
So we hid the car out behind Mickey's shop, and I would work on it every night. And it took about 2 months before Terry caught on to what I was doing, my stepdad. And then he was scared that I didn't know what I was going to do. So I was going to build something that wasn't safe. So then he obliged to help us. And that was pretty much it. So we built that first hobby stock. I ran about 5 races at the end of '94, and made my first arched enemy within those first 4. I think it was those, like the second to last race, Lynn Pierce.
Oh.
And Lynn came by and just walloped me, and I didn't, and I thought, man, that was extra hard. And after the race, he came over and explained to me how the pedals worked, and that the one on the right was a gas pedal, and I said, I don't remember what I said, but yeah, that's a big guy that wants to rip your head off. And
Yeah.
And finally, I thought, man, I'm a real racer now. I got somebody that wants to beat me up, So, that was our hobby stock year. We ran about 4 races that year. We came back the next year, and we finished second in points. I can't remember how much we lost the championship by, but we were second in points by maybe 10 or 20 points. And we come back in '96 with the newer car, lighter car. And it was, the gray areas are there. That's just an open map. And so we had done some stuff, and the car was super fast. I think we won. Oh man, we won we ran 32 races that year. I bet we won 20 heat races, won a bunch of features. But if we weren't winning, we were wrecking. And we ended up barely winning the '96 championship by 1 point. Over Charles Buxton.
Oh.
And back then, when you won a hobby stock championship, you didn't have they made you move up. That was the rules. You couldn't stay in hobby stock anymore, and I couldn't really afford it. I didn't, and I'm gonna be honest, I was writing hot checks, and I was doing whatever I could do to try and build a street stock, super stock. And that was with Terry's help, it was, and with Paul's help. I was still, when you talk about that fire, I don't have that kind of fire anymore, Bobby. If it comes down to writing a hot check to pay for parts, it ain't happening like it did back then. But yeah, I was dead set, that if that was their rule, I had to build a street stock. I couldn't. That's what I had to do to race. I was going to find some way to do it, and so yeah, then that's when I got to run Rodney. We came up in the street stock. So,
yep.
So Sean, talk about moving up to running out that old late model that Terry ran, the one that John Bartine had for years. That yellow, the multicolored one that you had for that. The Thunderbird. Talk about that. Yeah. I mean, and that was about the time you got to transition over to Thunder Hill when Longhorn closed and opened back up again, and Sam had it, and then Chambers had it, and then a couple people changed in there. Talk about that transitional there from going. We love Longhorn, and we love Kyle, but we've always said, and all the old timers have always said, we don't know what Longhorn had, but it's been really hard to replicate what it had, especially when you move to Kyle. But talk about those transition years going to Kyle.
Kyle, to be honest, I couldn't stand Kyle. For 10 years, I couldn't stand Kyle. It wasn't Longhorn. I couldn't get everybody. we had pretty good results, but the truck, whatever we took there, just never felt right. I get it right for 1 and 2, but I couldn't get 3 and 4. I get 3 and 4, I'd give up 1 and 2. And I'm not saying we were horrible, but it just, it didn't feel like we were very complete. And the deal on the late model, I was running street stocks, and I got barred from Longhorn. I had an incident at Longhorn. I got barred for a couple of weeks, and we had 2 street stocks at the time. We had Pawpaw, my granddaddy's 15, and then my 5. And so, and I was running Longhorn on Fridays, and Pawpaw was running the 15 car at Thunder Hill and Kyle. And when I got kicked out of Longhorn, he just said, well, you can run my car out at Kyle. So I started running his car at Kyle, and I don't remember how many races I ran, but then I got into an incident with another driver. Well, I say his name. We're good friends now, but I got into an incident with Robert Stewart.
Yep.
And it was I was a little fanatical back then, I guess, and car wouldn't start, and I kind of made a scene and chased him down the race. I was gonna catch him on foot while he was still in his car, and I made a it was horrible decision, horrible scene. But the cool part was the week after that, a man showed up at my work named Clyde Eisen, and I didn't know who Clyde Eisen was. And he came in and he asked me about driving his late model, and I said, you got race cars? And he said, I'm Clyde Eisen. And I felt bad. I didn't know who he was. And I said, well, why do you want me to drive? I said, I ain't drive no late models. And he said, any guy that had, like Bobby said, any guy that had that fire to get out of his car and chase another guy on foot, that's who he wanted driving his car. Yeah. And so I drove for Clyde for about 3 months, and Clyde called me over to his house office one night and showed me all the receipts of all the tore up stuff I was costing him. And he didn't like that fire anymore. He didn't. We had already started talking about parting ways. He said his exact words were, I love you like a damn son, but I can't afford you. And and I told him I would try and change, but by changing, he didn't, it was just time. So the following year I had an opportunity through Danny Stewart and Jimmy Meredith with the Thunderbird. And they told me that Danny had told me that Jimmy had Terry's old car, and I asked Jimmy if he wanted to sell it and build me a motor, and Jimmy did. Jimmy helped me out a lot. And so yeah, we on a shoestring budget that could barely run a street stock, we decided we were gonna, why the hell not? Let's go race a late model. We can barely afford a street stock. We'll do better in a late model. So
yeah.
And I realized real quick what Clyde Eisen did, why I cost him too damn much money. Because man, I was if I would have kept racing late model even 2 more races, I'd have probably been divorced. She was it was costing too much time, too much money. And I think we probably ran 20 races. We got one feature win out of it. And it was fun while it lasted. It was cool I got to drive my dad's car, that he had won championships in. We had revamped it, rebuilt it, and brought it back, 10 years later. And it was a really competitive car. I just wasn't able to afford tires. I wasn't afford to the upkeep for every race. I just didn't have that budget. And but it was fun. It was a struggle, but it was fun.
Yeah. Sean, kind of backing up just a little bit right there. You mentioned there about the 15 car. Let's kind of talk about those days. I mean, because when we were the street stock class back then, that we were a part of, in my opinion, that's the best class I ever raced in.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a great time in Austin, and we all kind of moved on, But I mean, with yourself and Kerry and Don Banker, and I mean, there were just so many guys.
Yeah.
That I think it was 2001, 2000. I don't know when it was. There were 26 races, and I think 23 different guys won features.
Yeah.
And that's remember that 25, 30 cars.
Yeah.
Jeez,
we used to. You think back, like you were naming off names there. We had Leland Waddell, we had Donnie Meredith.
Yeah.
We had Lynn Pierce came back with his Camaro. We had Larry Stein, who
Bobby
was
LaFont.
Bobby LaFont, Clint LaFont. We had, and on any given night, anybody could win. And it was very, very competitive. And it was kind of like, and we started, High Point started back.
In the back. Yeah.
And so it was kind of a race. It was kind of you tried to make it a gentleman's race to the front. And most nights we had anywhere from 26 to 32 cars on the track. And you just tried to get to the front as fast as you could and hopefully have the least amount of damage, you know, and whoever could do it was going to win that race. And that was, that kind of, at that point, that was before they'd widened the back straightaway. And it was kind of a one groove track because you couldn't get off a two real good. You really had to pinch it down. And so usually if the faster guy could get out front, because there was no run off of turn two, you could just hold a pace and just hope you didn't get laced with a front bumper and you were going to win it,
Yeah. And remember, Sean, I mean, the thing about that was back in those days is with all those cars, and if you had to, because we were in the back, I mean, you had to go to the back. I mean, you started in the back. You didn't have a lot of cautions back then. I mean, you may have a melee or a random spin out, but shit, we'd run 25 laps, no cautions.
Yeah. I mean, the cars were more solid. I think the drivers were more
solid.
More solid. The drivers were a little more solid. And I think that we had more, how do you put it? You don't want to say, you talk about, the racing nowadays, we were more compassionate with each other. We did have that kind of family friendly atmosphere where, you didn't, we were really friends. You know what I'm saying? Me and Leland Waddell, we had some real, knuckle busters, some hard discussions about, me mirror driving him or him roughing me up off the turns. But at the end of it, we ended up as teammates with Ison,
That's what I thought. Yeah.
And so there was more compassion as a driver it was the golden rule: do as to others as you'd have them do unto you. And so usually if there was a wreck or a spin, you knew it wasn't on purpose. And you knew it was just really, we raced hard back then, but we were compassionate of the other guy. We were compassionate of his time, his money, his car, and what he did to get to the racetrack, just the same as what we did to get to the racetrack. And so I think that, like Rodney said, we wouldn't have yellows, but we wouldn't have the cluster bombs, the dead set, pin them into the wall kind of wrecks. We would have bump and runs. We would have hard racing, but we had good, clean, compassionate hard racing. And that's what I think that's what's lacking today.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that was lacking back in the day was social media to get people's feelings. Yeah. You didn't, everybody, you had your opinion, but if you gave them and someone didn't like them, you got punched in the mouth. And you didn't get to hide behind a computer screen and a keyboard. So that was what made the racing better back then. But in terms of, you mentioned something about the drivers being different. And was it just the mentality different? Like, what changed on it? Was it when we started racing every other week? To me, I've always said racing is like a drug. You get addicted to it, but it's like all of a sudden, if you're not racing every week and you have an opportunity to sit at home on an off weekend, or hey, go camping for an off weekend, and you're not doing it every single week, is that when it changed around here? Do you guys think that when you had the opportunity to do something else other than just race 30 weeks a year?
Yes, because back then you knew you were racing. You didn't plan, you didn't look at the schedule, and you didn't go, okay, well, we can go camping. Me and Crystal, we can go camping this week. It's not a race weekend. The other formality of it, like you just said, I'll put this in a term. So with church, okay, and I know this is race talk, but I'll put it in the front in term of I say this a lot to my guys at church, is that if a guy, and I don't like to be that guy that calls you up and goes, "Hey, Rodney, you missed church 3 weeks this month. What do we got to do to get you back into church?" But it's a real thing that I know that the more I have a gentleman miss my Bible study or miss church, then I know he misses 1 week, it turns into 2 weeks, it turns into 3 weeks, and it's harder to get them committed to come back. It's harder to convince them that, hey, you need to come do this. And that's the same thing with racing. If you give guys a week off, 2 weeks off, hell, by the time you give them 5 months off, they're eating their arm off. They're ready to get back in the race car. But you're not, consistent car counts and keeping these guys thriving. We get complacent, we get lazy. Like my papa said last weekend, how did we used to do this? 32 weeks out of the year. Well, we did it because that's all we knew. And now, and I got to be honest, me and Robert Walton were just talking the other night, and I said, as long as I got a race car sitting here that I know if I want to go race, I can go race, I'm good with it. I don't need to race every weekend anymore. Now these younger guys, I know when I was their age, when I was 18, 20, 25, hell, even 35 years old, give me a race every weekend. When they're at Kyle at Thunder Hill, 2009, 2010, I would run 3 race cars in one night because I wanted to make as many laps. I wanted to race. If I'm at a racetrack, I want to race. And so we would run the truck, the modified, and the Hell Bitch, the Camaro, the super stock. And I would run as many laps as I could because I knew we were going to back. That's when we started the bye weeks. We'd race 1 week, then we were off another week. And I was like, I didn't feel like I was getting enough racing in. I wanted as many laps as I could get. And these young guys nowadays, I think that if the tracks could set them up, let's put it this way, especially on dirt, these guys, if Cotton Bowl's closed one weekend, those guys, they're not sitting at home. They're going to Waco or they're going to I-37. They shut down that track. They're going somewhere else to race. So they're not really committing to a track, but they're still committing to racing. Now people like me that are getting old that say, "Oh, I just want to race once a month." It's a great schedule. I get to please my wife and go camping. But yeah, I think that that's when it started. With you don't want to say the guys that weren't the hard chargers, that just drilled into racing, because I know I was, but. You get into that. You miss church 1 week, it's easier to miss the next week. You miss a race 1 week, it's easier to miss the next week. Other interests come up, other activities come up, and to be honest, you don't realize how much work and time goes into these things until you take a couple of weeks off and you go, "Wow, that was kind of nice." Yeah. Don't give them that opportunity. These guys that are running Cotton Bowl and then running Waco, and then, we're off, so let's find a track. There used to be a website called chasingracing.com. And and you would eat yourself up on that going, okay, where can we, will my car fit here? Will my car fit there? Can I take my car? And I think that's, especially with the asphalt guys, I got to kind of keep them lip zipped on that. But these dirt guys remind me a lot of us on asphalt back in the 80s and 90s. They want to race, and they're going to do it, whether or not you're racing it, whether or not they're racing at their home track or whether or not they got to drive an extra 2 hours. They're going to race, and that's that hasn't changed. It's just not the same track every weekend. These asphalt guys, like I said, I don't want to get started on that, but. There's a different mentality there, and I got to say that's the one thing that I respect the hell out of about these dirt track guys is that again, going back to Bobby saying that fire, these guys want to race. They want to race, and like you said with social media, when we didn't have an asphalt track active for 2 or 3 years, we saw asphalt guys going man, I wish we had a place to race, and they'd go down to Pensacola or they'd go to Mobile once or twice a year. And they said, man, if we just had and now they get a track and they don't want to go.
Yeah.
I don't get it. And I'm going to be honest with you. I think the world of Owen and HMP is my favorite track. And he's paying purses that are just, it's outlandish. It's outlandish. What he's paying for what he's getting back in return. He's not getting in a nutshell what he's given. And I just don't understand why they're not supporting it more. But and I'll just stop on that. So,
well, and I'm glad you say that, Sean, because I have a huge issue with, it's folks. I see folks all the time. I mean, not just the racers, but it's like, I'm going to go to Nashville to watch whatever race. And it's like, there's a track in Houston, by the way.
Yeah.
I haven't seen you there all year, so it's like one of those things, maybe it's not the best race, maybe it's not as good as Nashville, but the whole thing is support. Is the other part of that. And kind of to your point right there, I think the other thing that's really changed is like when you and I, we get out there and we wreck that car up, and we did. I mean, when we raced every week, I mean, you tore stuff up. I mean, you are going to bend stuff, and I think you were. There's no doubt you were raised the same way that I was, to where it's like, okay, we're going to race again next week. The car's in good shape, but still, we got to go through it. We got to get out there. We did that. We got out there and did that, and I think that's a big difference now, where guys don't want to get out there and do that stuff. Yeah. They will not touch that car until they bolt in behind the wheel.
Yeah. And I don't know. I've had that discussion with some friends, and I've always, that's just the way I was raised. You get home. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I get home from a racetrack at 1, 2 o'clock, Houston, man, 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. And I'll back the holler in here to the shop. I'll get up next morning, go to church. Once we get out of church, the first thing that happens, that car gets unloaded. Yeah. Whether it got damaged or not, that car's getting unloaded and it's getting touched. It's getting worked on. And I think that's what's crazy. And I said this earlier. That's my enjoyment, though, and that maybe I'm seeing it from a biased point of view, where I like to work on them more than I like to race them, almost, But I see a lot of guys that they'll leave that car sitting on the trailer for the whole week, or at least 3 or 4 days, tied down, strapped down. Oh, there's nothing wrong with it. We're just going to unload it and run it. Well, and I think that's what irks me the most about the dirt, is that whether or not it shows on the track or not, I'm busting my ass to try and make this thing work. And I'm killing myself trying to figure it out and working on it. And hell, I'll scale it 3 times in 4 days. I'll have different ideas. And and I'm not trying to say, oh, look how hard I work, but I'm just saying I try really hard with bad results. But then I do got to say, there's some guys that say, oh, hell, I didn't unload it till I got to the track and then they go out there and kick my ass. So I don't know, but I was taught that, you never leave it, locked down on the trailer. You need to be, work on it. If it doesn't work, if you're not working on it and you're getting bad results, go tell it to the river, because it doesn't matter. You're not putting in the effort. So
that's right.
So Sean, one of the things I like to ask the old school guys is it's a double-sided question. Number one, what's your favorite win that you ever had? And then number two, when you're going to remember number 2 first, which is the one that got away from you that you remember the most?
You want my favorite first?
Either or. You can answer them in either.
My favorite race win was 2014. It was my grandfather's 81st birthday, May 31st, 2014. I don't even remember where I started, but my brother, I don't even remember where I started, but I think I was on the pole. But me and Colt went side by side, and Kyle in the trucks.
I called that race. That was badass.
Yep. I think we ran 40 something laps side by side, and it was, he would get. I kept thinking he's gonna get tired. He's got to get tired. His tires got to go away. He's already killed the tires. When's he gonna slow down and just let me go? And he didn't have any give in him, man. He kept on, and we did. I think we ran about 40 laps side by side. We bumped one time coming off of 4. He got a little squirrely and had to check up off of me, and that was about the only contact we made the whole time. I think we couldn't have been more than 2 inches off of each other the whole time, and we hit each other one time. And Terry James did tell me after the race, and I'm gonna be honest. My brother can deny it all he wants to, but I think we were both crying after that one. That was I definitely knew that was not gonna ever leave my heart. I said then I should quit on that. It's never gonna get any better than that. I beat the great Colt James. I beat my little brother, and it was just the best fairy tale race you could ever dream up. Afterwards, though, Terry James did come over to me and tell me that I owed them a left front fender. But then the one that got away, we were running I don't even remember. Chris Romo could tell you how much money it paid. Chris paid the bills. I didn't worry about what the pay was. I just wanted to race. But there was a big money truck race, and we had set fast time by like 2.5 tenths. We were a rocket ship, and they dropped the green, and we ran off. And I think we had a after about 20 something laps, 25 laps, we had a half a track lead on Joey. I think Joey Jenkins, Kerry Stapp was running third. They were both running trucks for Gunnar Freed, and we were probably about 15 laps from the end, and I come off of turn 4, and the engine just died. It just died, and I didn't know what to do. I'm on the radio panicking, and I coast it down, there in turn 1. I come up off in the pits, and Chris and the guys run over, and they're grabbing Thomas and somebody. They're grabbing the hood, and Chris leans in, and he starts fiddling with the ignition switch, and next thing I know, he pushes a button and it fires right up. And so I go back on the track, and Chris is on the radio like, "Why didn't you flip the switch? Why didn't you do? Why didn't you do?" And I just, all I knew was it broke. But we came back out. We lost probably 2 laps on that, but we raced back up to Joey and Kerry, and then Terry James. My dad was spotting for me, and he told me back off of them. It's their race. We're laps down, but
yeah,
we had a rocket of a truck, and that was probably. I remember thinking at the time, I was like, "That's going to be the most dominant truck we've ever had." And a $2 ignition switch shorted out, and it was a payday for us in the trucks. Joey could probably tell you how much it paid. Joey won it, so Joey probably could tell you how much it paid. But that's the one that got away from me. That's the one that I still kind of wake up to, going, damn.
Yeah.
But
so Sean, I was thinking about this today. And thanks again for doing this tonight, man. This has been so fun. I've been looking forward to this all day. You were one of those guys. Again, I've gotten to race with you, and we raced, I think, in the heyday of street and super stock, whatever you want to call it. We got to do that at different points. You raced in the heyday of the trucks. When the sport mods went to asphalt, you were doing that. You have done so many different things, and now you've gone over to dirt and IMCA stock cars, and then hell, this year you go back to asphalt and you win at Houston. Just kind of your career. I mean, we say that we're getting older, which we are. But damn, dude, you have done so much in a real short period of time, man. Talk about your career. It is so freaking amazing what you've done, man.
Well, but you got to look at the family I come. My nephew Case just won 6 national champions. So, I'm kind of, we were fortunate. And like I said, I had a lot of, when we first got started, just had a lot of support from my grandparents, and it was Yeah, I mean, I just always wanted to. I wanted to always race different tracks. I always wanted to race, different cars. I think the only thing I haven't run is a Legend, and
It's never too late. It's never too late, my man.
yeah, and and I just always wanted to. I was just talking to somebody. Oh, me and Robert Stewart or Robert Walton were talking about this the other night, and I said, that was my favorite part with the truck series and with certain races with the late models was I got to go to different tracks, and to be honest, that's kind of where I'm at now. That's what and I just like to, I didn't. Somebody said when I came to Houston that I came to cherry pick, and I didn't come to cherry pick. I came to support Owen Pittman, and I love HMP. And also I love asphalt. While I say, I'm trying this dirt thing, at heart, I'm still an asphalt driver. And, in Houston, I know it was funny. Some guy, I won't say, I heard that somebody said, well, man, how'd he do that? He come from dirt. And my man Carl there had to tell him, he said, well, his whole family races asphalt. He's been doing this a long time. But yeah, we've been real fortunate on the asphalt. Been real fortunate in just about everything we built besides that thing. But yeah, it's been good. We've won. A lot of times you can, like you said, when you have a bad race, you're grateful. I've been racing. I would say the last 4 years I've slowed down a lot. So I wouldn't say I've actually raced 30 years. But I've been racing since 1994, and we've won quite a few championships. We won a couple of truck championships. We won a national championship with American Race Truck Series in 2005. We won the NASCAR Southwest region in 2013, and then street stock. We won some street stock championships. Didn't win. We won a couple of features in late models. Won Rookie of the Year. And what did we win Rookie of the Year? The Rookie of the Years are the important ones because you only get so many chances at those. That's right. I joke with people that's why I ran so many different cars throughout 30 years is because I always won a Rookie of the Year. And but yeah, I mean it's been fun. It's but and again, like I said, coming from the family that I come from. I think my dad had probably 6-7 championships. Colt had numerous championships, and I'm more proud of what we did as a family than I'm not going to sit here and go, well, I've had 7-8 championships, I've won this many races. I'm more proud of what my grandparents, and Rodney, my family real well, but I don't even know if you know this, but I made a joke about 10 years ago to my brother. He said Case James wasn't going to race stock cars. He said Case James is going to play baseball. And I said, you got to be kidding me, man. I said, you came to Mooresville and you met his mama. I said, this kid was born because of race cars. You came here to work on race cars. And I think that's the way it is. And, when I look back at our family history, my grandmother was a trophy girl at a racetrack. Right. My granddaddy won. They met each other and we race cars. So that connection right there, my whole family, I think, like I said, I'm not going to, tout my fun time, or, that we did this, we did that. But I will tout my family. As a family, we've really had fun and we've been pretty successful at what we do. So,
yeah. So Sean, I do have to ask you because I have it pulled up here. I did it one time. Let's because like you said, I mean, when Bobby asked about the competitive fire, let's talk about this one. Yeah. One of the most famous pictures in Texas racing, my man. San Antonio Speedway in the truck. God, I love that photo.
Yeah. That's fire, Bob. That's fire, Bobby.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was and don't get me wrong. Last night I saw that on the Facebook and I said, I got church friends on social media.
Sorry, dude. I forgot about that.
But hey, it's great witness though, and I'm going to say right now, I can't. I'll tell you real. I've worked real hard. That guy in that picture, I admire his desire, and he had a hell of a temper when he got pushed too far, and I like to think that we're still. I'm still that guy, but I'm not that guy. Davey Allison said one time, he said, I'm going to get pushed, but I'm going to push back twice as hard as what I get. And I think for a long time, I got a reputation as a dirty driver. I got a reputation as an angry, aggressive driver. But I drove everybody with respect, and I didn't appreciate it if I didn't get it back. And that was one of those times where that's a friend of the family's. I'm not going to say anything bad about him. I never got an apology for that. And, like Bobby said, we're like elephants. We don't forget a damn thing. And, and he's a friend of the family. I have no hard feelings to him. But what that picture doesn't show is that we wrecked coming off of turn 4. And I heard it. My mama was spotting for me. We wrecked coming off of turn 4 in San Antonio, and it's Steve Green. And, he got his nose under me. He kind of wiggled me up, and we're coming to checkered flag. And my mom, being my mom, she starts screaming, "Oh my God, he's going to wreck you. He's going to wreck you." And I can't see what she's seeing, but I can feel him pushing me. And he did. He turned us coming off of 4, but he took both of us into the outside wall and then in the inside wall. And I stopped about 5 foot short of the finish line, finished second. He slid backwards across the finish line. So he's actually facing me in that picture, and he's flipping me off. So I got to flip him off. So, but he didn't get caught with it. I got caught with it, and at that time we were running USRA. We had won the championship the year before. We were leading, if I remember right, going into that weekend. We had I think it was in July, and I'm pretty sure we had wrapped that championship up. We had a hefty 100-something point lead, and that ended that night because I got suspended for 2 weeks, and they took 75 championship points away and I tried to deny it. They called me and told me that I was going to be suspended and dock some points for unsportsmanlike conduct on the front straightaway, and I said, well, what did I do? And Rick Day told me what I did, and I told him, I said, you're full of it, man. I said, I didn't do anything like that. And then when they sent me an official notice in a big envelope, with my suspension and my dock of points, and it was real professional. And in that envelope, I believe, if I'm right, there was that picture, and you can't deny it. When they sent me the picture, and there's an official standing over my shoulder watching me do it. But But yeah, I mean, it happens. It's an emotional sport, and I've given. How do you put it? And so many people have, and I wouldn't change it for the world. But I've given so much of my life, for what some people would say is my hobby. It's way more than a hobby. It's way more than a hobby. And I get pretty fiery about it, and I'm not going to say that I'll never do that again. I'm not going to say that, because when I get in that race car, it's a totally different person. I joke around about the crazy horse thing. I used to say, well, it's just a name. It's like a WWE character, it's not for real. But when I get in that race car, it is a different kind of it's a persona. I don't want to say it's a fake character. It is, my emotion is going to come out in a race car. I'm sorry, I can't control that. But it happens. And usually afterwards I feel bad. Sometimes I don't. I'm just, but to hold that against somebody, you want, kind of like Clyde Eisen said before, somebody with that kind of passion, that's what he was looking for. And I remember before my grandmother passed away, I called her that day and I told her, I said, because she was very upset with me about the Robert Stewart deal when I chased him on foot down the track. And then I called her that day. She was the first person I told. I said, I just got a late model ride from a man. He came in here and grandma said, "That's great, baby." And I said, "You know what he liked the most about my driving style?" And she said, "What's that?" And I said, "That I'll get out and chase somebody on foot." He said, "That's passion." So, so what some people say is, you can't please everybody. And all I'm going to do is please myself and, do what I got to do in that race car. And if I'm passionate about it, then you're going to see, you're never going to see a lack of passion out of me at a racetrack, in a race car. If I'm on a track, I'm trying to give it everything I got.
Sean, I will say, because I messaged you a few weeks back to borrow some of your in-car video of an incident in Houston. Mm-hmm. And so all that happens, that whole thing happens. And bottom line, you got taken out. I mean, you got the shaft on that thing. So when that happens, I'm like, I have that mic in my hand and I'm like, waiting for the horse. I'm like, here we go. I'm like, be sure and get this on video because it's going to be a staple moment. Nothing. I'm like, the horse has calmed down just a little bit.
No, you won't believe this if I tell you this. I told Crystal this the next morning. She didn't come to Houston with us. So the next morning we were driving to church and I told her
on the way to church, that son of a bitch.
I told her, I said, man, babe, I said, God would not let me out of that car. Because I did not, and I'm not saying that you can call it crazy coincidence, whatever you want to call it. I did not realize that was him in my window. I thought that was an official.
Oh.
And I was telling him, I'm okay. And then I heard, this ain't happening tonight. And I went, I'm cool, man. I'm not going to do nothing. And then I realized, oh, shit, it's this guy. And I told him, I said, you back up. I said, back up and give me 5 foot. Let me get out of this car. And then we're going to talk about it. And so and by that time I'm throwing stuff and I'm trying to get out. And everything I tried, it seemed like every time I'd go to get up, I got yanked back in the seat. I had a harness holding me. I ripped my radio buds in half, but, yeah, I mean, I wasn't gonna tell the whole world that story, but now now I've told you guys. But yeah, I was trying my ass off to get out of that car, and that's what I told Crystal. I said, I believe that was God, telling me, sit down, boy, sit down. We're not doing this. But I did. I was trying. When I realized that was him at my window, I literally I thought, man, you messed up, buddy, because I was pretty calm until then, and then I wasn't calm anymore. And so
okay, thank you. I feel better now because I'm like, come on. He's getting older, but he's not quite that old. So thank you for reassuring me on that. Really good stuff. Oh, Sean, man, this has been a good time, dude. Hell, we're an hour into this, man. So what else you gonna do? I mean, what's the rest of the year? You putting that thing together?
Yeah,
you really gonna sell it, or what's gonna happen?
It's up for sale. I'm still kind of, I talked to Chris Roma last night. We're talking about, we want to see how Houston rolls. I thought about trying to get it together to where we just run Houston with it next year. Maybe try and make a bootlegger out of it. I don't know. Right now, I don't want to leave the dirt, kind of like we talked about a while ago. I'm challenged, and I don't want to quit the dirt right now. I feel like I can't leave on this note, Right. And so right now I'm trying to convert this thing over to make it legal for I-37. We'll be at I-37 the 1st and 2nd of November, run with their Fireball class. Like I said, I just want to run different tracks. Yep. And, so we're going to take it down to I-37. If it doesn't sell before I-37, we'll be down in I-37. After that, I couldn't tell you. We talked about maybe doing a factory stock so we could, because it's crazy. IMCA, I built this car saying we could run numerous tracks with an IMCA stock. The only thing we can really do around here is Waco or Cotton Bowl.
Yeah.
Well, I want to go to 105. I want to go to I-37. I want to go to South Texas. I want to go to Texana. I can't do that with this car. So we have kind of thrown around the idea of maybe a factory stock, maybe a dirt truck. I'm kind of waiting to see where the dirt truck deal goes with the kind of change of management deal. And, just right now, to be honest, I got my head telling me this one day and my heart telling me this one day. And I'm just kind of, it's going to be whatever it's going to be, you know. And right now, all I'm looking forward to is I-37 on the 1st and 2nd and see what happens. Just have some fun.
You know, Sean, when I was talking about all those places that you raced, hell, I forgot you ran the damn Derby too.
Yeah.
Oh, damn, you're old.
Yeah. You know, anybody that hadn't ran the Derby, man, it's you got to put it on a bucket list. You know, if you got to miss a couple of races out of the year to put it in the budget, because some of the best memories we got, you know, is going down and running 5 flags. So yeah,
good stuff, my man. Always a pleasure. Thank you for doing this. I know that we'll cross paths again soon. Hell,
sure.
I need to do a Bible study with you, man. I need some enrichment. So I'll be checking in with you here at some point.
Well, come on with it. So, well, I appreciate you guys. Thank y'all.
You got it, man. Take care, Sean. Yeah,
see y'all.
You will. You bet. There he goes. Crazy horse, Sean Paul Lehman. Damn, that dude has run everything. I totally forgot about the Derby. I'm like, damn, man, that's
and we had him for an hour and 12 minutes.
Yeah, how about that? That's really cool right there. And I think that's the fun part as we start getting into the what's going to be the off season, is that's when we can kind of hone in and talk to guys like that, because they've got such great stories. I mean, it's just really fun to hear, the trials and tribulations of what these people have done.
Well, his insights there when he won in Houston, I was doing one of those post-race interviews in the media center, and how that thing lasted almost 10 minutes. And I knew at that point that it was like his insight had changed. He never lost the fire, but I knew that his insight and his just his demeanor had changed a little bit from what it was back in the day, so to speak. So I think that, and it showed tonight. I mean, we were able to see maybe a different side of the crazy horse than what some people have seen over the years. So that's what makes these interviews like this really fun. And the people that have no idea about the rich history of Texas get a chance to listen to some of these stories, because we have people that listen from all over the country and hell, all over the world, really. So it's a good problem to have when you have listeners that are listening for the first time. So,
it's kind of funny, because I get like now doing being on X, with Racing America, is I get a lot of folks that reach out and they're like, man, the Texas stories are really cool. Because the one thing that I get from a lot of people on that thread, on that forum, is that we thought that Texas racing was done. We didn't know that was still there, but it's like those people are getting to, be enriched with stories like that. And I mean, I think that's really some of the best stuff that we get to do is, not only, we're lucky with dirt track racing and everything that we have here. And like we were talking about, man, we've got some really badass races that are coming up, but at the same time, we get to get in front of people like that and let them know about, what was missed back in the day. Cause Sean, and I'm glad, cause I got to tell you, Bobby, I was a little disappointed there when he had that mix up with Villarreal, where I'm like, okay, why is Sean? And I know, I know that Sean's a different dude right now, but I'm like, okay, what's going on here with Sean? So the fact that he was trying to be pissed off makes me feel better.
Yeah.
Oh man, good stuff. Good stuff. Sean Paul Lehman, the Crazy Horse. We'll have that podcast at RevvedUpSportsShow.com. So kind of back to that NASCAR thought, circling back, and we'll kind of take it maybe another 10 minutes or so. So how do you think this is going to shake out? because I don't know if anything's going to change. I think that the fact about what we saw today, that NASCAR's kind of pushing back a little bit and saying, we don't necessarily need you to be a part of the charter system. I think that, I mean, I don't think that 2311 and front row, or I don't think they're going to give in. I would hope that they don't give in after all this, but it's going to make for a very interesting Daytona, don't you think?
It's definitely going to make for a very interesting offseason, because that will be the story. Because you don't have a lot of big time driver moves, left. Everybody from Stewart Haas, with the Stewart Haas closing, is found a home. Everybody except for Ryan Preece. So I think that you have an opportunity there to have that be the underlying story. I don't foresee Denny Hamlin not doing actions detrimental anytime soon. So it'll be.
I hope he does. When end of the year, I hope he does. Well, he probably can't. He won't be able to.
Well, but you got to think about it. Netflix is doing that. Netflix is doing that racing show again with the playoffs, following the drivers around the playoffs.
Oh, that's right.
So that might, if he's in it again, he was polarizing last year for last year's show. So if he's in it again, that's going to make for a very, very interesting show.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what's going to be really interesting, and it's really going to cause a shitstorm if it happens. If it happens, is if, which I don't think it will. I don't think it will. I'm kind of going out on a limb. If Joey Logano wins this Cup title, it's going to be, I mean, because the whole thing the other day with the Bowman thing, and I truly think, but I guess we would have known by now. And again, Hendrick didn't appeal. I really thought that maybe some ballast or tungsten, whatever, maybe fell out of the car, but and maybe it was tungsten that fell out of the car. And maybe that's why Hendrick is not doing anything with it. But I think if Joey Logano wins this championship, oh my God. Oh my Lord.
It's Larson's to lose, I think. And if he comes onto it, since he whooped their ass at the Roval, he'll probably step on it in Vegas. And then he'll probably do fairly good at Homestead. And then who knows what's going to happen in Martinsville. But no pressure for the Hendrick guys, right? I mean, they're trying to win. They're trying to win the championship on the 40th anniversary of Hendrick Motorsports. So, that's an extra layer to the onion that I wouldn't want to be in that pressure cooker.
Yeah, yeah. And Joshua says back to the F1, back to the one lug nut thing, and I mean, that part is not the problem, but what the problem really is that this isn't. We talk about it all the time. This ain't a stock car. And stock cars are
sports car.
Yeah, it's a sports car. It's very different. I mean, that's why, last weekend I kept joking around and on Twitter or X or whatever, when it's like when Shane Van Gisbergen is winning all these polls, I'm like, breaking news. SVG wins a poll for the Busch race or for the Xfinity or for whatever. It's like, this is right up his alley. And I got to tell you, I mean, when you really want to look at this, I don't know how all of that came about. But when you want to talk about really good marketing, when you change to this type of car, to the kit car, when you go to this, and then you bring that dude over in something that he is so accustomed to, I like that. I like that, man. I like the sense that you get into these things. And I think what people didn't plan for is that he's getting pretty damn good on ovals. And when he figures that part out, holy smoke. That's really going to shake up some stuff.
Well, you know me, I watch a lot of supercars because I text you about it all the time. And ironically, I was not a fan of his in supercars. I don't know why. Maybe it's because he was driving a Chevrolet and I'm kind of a Ford guy. But I wasn't always the SVG fan when he was running supercars. Respected him for what he was doing in the championships he was winning. But I think what he's done this year in America, in NASCAR, is beyond recognition. I don't think he's considered just a road race specialist. I think what he's done is amazing, especially in the Xfinity car, because you got to realize he's never run an H shifting pattern, H pattern shifter. And not only that, he's having to learn it on the opposite side at which he's driven his entire life, where he's got to learn how to shift with his right hand. And all of that stuff. And so then when you the same thing kind of with the Cup car, but it's more in line with the supercar with the sequential shifter and stuff like that. But I just think what he's done is just, when they ran the Bathurst 1000, which was an amazing race I watched last weekend, They went. It was 1,100 kilometers and had one caution.
Damn.
On a 4.5 mile racetrack.
Mm.
So they had one caution up on the mountain. But what was crazy is they showed the merchandise hauler they had a full hauler with SVG NASCAR merchandise there at Bathurst. And when they showed the crowd, there were people wearing NASCAR shirts with Shane Van Gisbergen on it. So that shows you he's a transformational stuff. He's done some really good stuff international with the appeal. So it's he'll win a race next year. It'll probably be a road course, and he should have won at Watkins Glen till he stepped on it. So it's when he wins the oval will be the breakthrough.
Yeah, that's going to be the thing, because that was kind of always the thing with Juan Pablo Montoya. And I know that a lot of people like to laugh at JPM for whatever, but I mean, look, that's one of the best race car drivers in the world. I know you had the truck incident and all of that, but I mean, the fact that he should have won the Brickyard 400. He got gypped on the Brickyard 400 that one year. And that's where I think that it's going to be that breakthrough win when he does win on the oval, when it's really going to take people back. And I think that this really could be, I mean, depending what happens here, because like when we talk about with the lawsuit and all these different things, I mean, I think the Trackhouse is one of the best things that's happened to NASCAR racing, simply in the fact that you have, with Justin Marks, that's a progressive owner. He likes to do things different. I mean, whether it be pit boxes and all the different things that they do. I mean, there's a lot of pizzazz right there. He's gone out and hiring Daniel Suarez and winning the Mexican crowd and all of these different things. And with SVG, I mean, look at the diversity right there. He's got Ross Chastain there, which was a controversial guy, and that they do really good stuff. And that's where I think that, even though a lot of traditional NASCAR folks don't want to see it, that's where the sport needs to go, because that's your new crowd, Bobby. I mean, the old, RCR, all of that. I mean, that's not where it's at anymore. I mean, it's these different ideas, and it's not the same old NASCAR. When folks say we're NASCAR, like I was talking about Larry, we're not. We're NASCAR. We don't do all this. Well, I'm sorry. If you want to compete, you got to be different now.
Yeah, you got to be. Speaking of the good old boy crowd and stuff like that, we went this whole show without mentioning Bubba Pollard racing with Sam Hunt coming up at Martinsville in a Toyota.
Yeah, and I think that's a really big, Bubba. This is going to be. I think it's when Bubba gets that opportunity. I know he did it with JRM. I think that this is going to be a bigger deal.
If he qualified better, he'd have won that race.
Yeah, he would have. And the thing about it is, I think that this could be a bigger thing, because if he does it with Sam Hunt Racing, I have no doubt that Bubba Pollard's going to be competitive in that race. If he could somehow break through and win that with that team, that Xfinity Racing, I love Xfinity. To me, that's the best of the big three right now. Is Xfinity. The cars drive better. The talent pool that's in there, I think, is really, really good. And I mean, because the trucks have kind of turned into a little bit of ARCA sometimes with the stuff that they do. So, man, if BP can do that, and we need to get him on here. We've got to talk to him again, because I think this is a big chance for Bubba. Big chance for Bubba.
Yeah, it's another opportunity to showcase the short track prowess that we've all seen for years and know about.
What number is that car going to be?
26.
Uh-oh. I'm not superstitious, but I'm kind of superstitious. Another big one that I think that we just saw this past week is the fact that IndyCar, and even though it's IndyCar, Indy Next or whatever it's called, they get the services of Hailie Deegan. And I think that is a great landing place for her. Get away from all of this scuttlebutt of NASCAR. Get away from whatever happened with AM Racing and doing all the different things right there. IndyCar is at a point where, with the new TV contract, with the Dallas race, the Arlington race, I think they're at a point where they can get a star in there that can really kind of evolve it. Diversity, man. And you get her. You get Hailie Deegan. That is huge for IndyCar.
What's huge, except for one thing. What channel does the NXT IndyCar series race on?
Is that going to be the I don't know.
That's the problem with that move right there.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if that becomes something where they try to piggyback and go to FS1. I don't know what's going to happen with any of that. I don't know what what is the WB or what is
CW.
CW, the CW. I should know that. I don't know if that would be a landing place right there, but you've got to get the eyeballs on her. I don't know if it would be a situation to where you would try to vault her into making a qualifying attempt for the Indy 500. I think that from a business standpoint, that would be a good idea to try to get her in there. I don't think she's ready for that, but that's just a name right there. I think where IndyCar can kind of solidify themselves and try to grow that brand, because they do. I mean, they really need that right now.
Yeah, no, they need another couple of superstars that people can resonate with. Alex Palou is a hell of a racer, great talent, but nobody knows who the hell he is, and he's a 3-time IndyCar champion.
I'm telling you, dude, and that's the fucked up part to me for IndyCar, is because, like I've talked about, I mean, you have so many great drivers in there. You know, with Newgarden's a guy where I think he could transform over to NASCAR, and that would be like, oh man, you know, this guy fits right in. I mean, there are so many really good drivers on that roster, but I mean, people don't know them because you don't see them, and it's that time gap in between to where it's like there's so. 3-4 weeks in between when they race, and you get a little taste of them, and then they're gone.
The Fox deal will help, being on Network Fox every single week, every single race, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a really big help. I really do wish. And again, I'm taking the Texas Motor Speedway affiliation out of all of this. God bless America. I wish that they would race at TMS.
Hell, I wish they'd come to the Roval.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about that, I mean, they could do the Roval. God, I wish they'd come to COTA, and that's not just because it's right here. God bless, man. I think that they could have a really good race at COTA. I mean, that fits those cars.
The race they had at COTA was good,
dude. That was a great race, wasn't it? I mean, that was a great race, and I think that you could draw people in because. I just really wish that there was a way that IndyCar could capitalize on the infatuation with open wheel racing in the United States that Formula One gives. I mean, you could really captivate on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad where they sit in the ratings, but I think Fox is going to help. Hell, Fox is already promoting the Indianapolis 500, and it doesn't come for another 8 months.
Well, and they did a hell of a job because they did it. I mean, they did it during a Cowboy game. You know, I mean, that's going to be one of the most viewed games. They did it when the game was still somewhat in hand. So I think that's something that's really big right there, to where Indianapolis and look, you know, for the folks that want to piss and moan about Fox, like you said, Bobby, you talked about this when it first went down. They got the Daytona 500 and they've got the Indy 500
and the Super Bowl.
And the Super Bowl. Say what you want to say about Fox, but damn, I'd like to have that problem.
Yeah, I'd like to have that lineup too. They spend a lot of money, but that's a whole lot of eyeballs.
Oh man, all kinds. Good stuff. So the weekend coming up, I mean, obviously around here where we are, Formula One comes to town, the US Grand Prix, and it's just going to be a madhouse around here, Bobby. I am hunkering down in the studio. I am not leaving. I may venture out on Saturday morning, go do a spin class. Then I'm coming home, and I am not leaving. I've got Texas post game. I'm doing Texas, watching Texas, Georgia. I'll do that post game. Then I'm going to do some stuff on Sunday, but I am going nowhere. I don't want to be on the roads around here.
Yeah, no, not with Georgia, Texas this weekend, Formula One. This weekend, I'm buzzing down to San Antonio for a UTSA game, coming back, and we'll watch a good portion of the Georgia, Texas game, and then heading off to, no telling what I'll do on Sunday. But, maybe you'll see us again on Sunday. You never know.
That's right. That's right. And then on top of that, on Saturday, you got College Game Day that's coming in here. Eminem and Sting. Oh God, it's going to be horrible. The wife was telling me, because I am an Uber driver. If you don't know that, if you need a ride, hit me up. I'll get you where you need to go. She said, you ought to do some Uber this weekend. I said, are you fucking crazy? I ain't getting on the road around here.
No.
You've seen me in traffic. I'd be in jail.
Yeah, no, you're not a guy. You're not a traffic guy.
No, absolutely not. Not this weekend. Man, this has been a fun show. I really enjoyed talking to Sean Paul Lehman. That we didn't get into details there, but he and I would get crossed up, and I think that a lot of one of the things I wanted to ask him, and I'll ask you this because you were there week after week. I think
I just on the other side of the fence.
yeah, but I think one of the things that I really thought about, I mean, like if I was out there racing one weekend on a Saturday night and I wrecked Donnie Meredith, I would always try to go and make that right because I knew that I would have to see him again, next Saturday. So it's like, geez, it's a different time. It's a different time.
Yeah, social media. That's part of it.
Social media. I do want to pull this up, Bobby, and just a little bit of a tease coming up next Monday. We'll be back at our regular time next Monday, but here is your brand new 2025 Texana Raceway Park season schedule. Boy, they didn't fuck around, did they?
Nope, I love it.
Man, when they said scheduled to be determined and coming soon, I didn't think it was going to be on October 17th of this year. That's a lot of dates right there.
It's a lot of dates. It's by the Gulf Coast, so there'll be a couple of rainouts, but it'll be pretty good. Gonna be a hell of a challenge. I got to get the old vocal cords tuned up for that because that's more races than what I anticipated. But it'll be all right. I'll find a way after 20 years to make it work.
I'll be waiting for that Bobby Chaffee Facebook message that Double R sent out saying, "I'm tired. I'm not doing this all the time anymore." That's coming, my man. That is coming. It's schedules like that that make that happen. So anyway, and for the folks that asked, speaking of that, the South Texas Shootout, November 21st through the 23rd at Corpus. I will be there for that one, and I am doing the race coming up at the end of the month there at Corpus. So I'll be doing those as well. So
and Houston this weekend too. If you get a chance to go down there, you won't be there. I won't be there. But hopefully a lot of other people will show. There's a guest announcer that we're not gonna. Are we supposed to say who's supposed to be, or are we keeping that under?
It's posted. It's
Oh,
posted.
it is posted. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, Jennifer Ashland will be behind the microphone there, and I tell you that lady right there, she's when I posted my post about stepping away from stuff, she wants most of my gigs, so let's go get her right there. She's after it right there. She does a good job. That's one of those folks that's doing a lot of good things, and that race reunion was a hell of a lot of fun. So well done on that deal right there.
Yeah, no, that was a lot of fun. I was glad to support Texana, but still kind of sad that I missed the San Antonio stuff.
Yeah, it's a good time. Got to talk to a lot of old friends over there. A lot of old friends. All right, guys, we'll check out again. We're doing it next Monday, regular time, 6:30. And when we pulled up that Texana thing, the reason that I pulled that up is because Monty Chamberlain will join us next Monday. He'll kind of break down some of the backstory and some of the intel on all that, how that schedule came together. So we'll get a little bit of the Texana stuff, Bobby. So your track's getting after it, dude. So be ready. Bring your pen. Take some notes, my man.
Yeah, I'm gonna need to. Like I said, I saw it first thing this morning, bright and early at 8 o'clock, and I saw it about 30 seconds before you sent it to me. So
yeah. No, good stuff. Good stuff. All right, friends. Thank you all for being a part of this. RevvedUpSportsShow.com. All of the podcasts are there. Again, go to the YouTube page, subscribe, like that, and share it. It's totally free. Doesn't cost you anything to do that. Get us to 500 because subscriber 500 and 501, you're getting a Revved Up prize pack and all these really cool things. So help us get there if you can. All right, Bobby. Hey, best wishes for your mom. Hope everything works out there with her.
yeah, let's hope so.
Yep, absolutely. You're like, what's next?
Yeah, no shit.
What's next? All right, you guys have a great weekend. Enjoy your weekend. #Real Race Talk. It is the Revved Up Sports Show.